Hello, Cross Mountain. I'm honored that you're here and hope that you've enjoyed the service today. It is the first Sunday in August. That's hard to believe, but it means that summer is just about over. And in just a matter of days, some of us will be back into a little more routine, while others of us are going to be jumping into a lot of routine. I do want to take a minute and once again celebrate all that took place this summer. The truth is, we have so much to be thankful for. We started the summer with sports camp, where we had 476 campers, along with 200 plus dream teamers serving over 4 nights. The ladies' sisterhood night in June was powerful, and it saw a lot of great connections made. And then we had youth camp. Over 50 junior high and senior high students experienced a week of fun, competition, but most importantly, significant meaning, where dozens of students gave their lives to Christ while others were called into full-time ministry. July the 5th was a blast, no pun intended. And Serve Day was definitely a highlight. For Serve Day, we had 225 dream teamers serving in 9 different locations across the city. In addition to that, our missions team built a home in Romania, motion conference for our high school students and young adults was next level, and kids camp was a first-time spiritual landmark moment, landmark experience for so many of our children. To say that it was a great summer would be a huge understatement. And the best part is this: we're not even done yet. We still have 3 big nights, August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, where Dino Rizzo, Manny Arango, John Siebling, Ben Kolarsik, and John Larson will be here live at Cross Mountain. It is going to be incredible. I truly am thankful for the summer. But I'll tell you, I also recognize this about summer. It can bring some challenges. A lack of routine can create challenges. The absence of a real schedule or structure in our lives can create challenges. And even the other side of that can be challenging. A summer that's been cram-packed with events, activities, and trips can cause us to overlook some of the most important things, people, and areas of our lives. Here's my thought that I really want to focus in on today. Summer can knock us off the wagon in areas of our life that really matter. We can be less committed, less focused. We can be less intentional. And so I want to use our time together today to do what I call a recalibration. I want to look at recalibrating our lives, our goals, our schedules, our relationships, and most importantly, our spiritual life as we roll out of summer and into fall. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Randy's talking about recalibrating things that matter, and he's not even here at church today. Valid point. Kelly and I are actually at a conference this week, and next week I wanted to start our series, The End Times, a series on the rapture, tribulation, and the second coming of Christ. So I took a risk, and I decided to do the message this way. I promise, no hypocrisy was intended. It was simply a way for me to use technology to be here when I couldn't physically be here. So let's jump into our message. All of us have grown accustomed to having GPS. We have it on our phones. We have it in our cars. And the truth is, man, it has changed life in the area of traveling or simply from getting from point A to point B. In fact, I often joke around and say, what did we do before we had GPS? I'll tell you what we did. We had one of these. We had a Rand McNally road atlas, and we would keep this thing in our cars. In fact, you better get you a copy of this because this is the 100-year anniversary. But I'll tell you, with having GPS, we've also gotten accustomed to experiencing our GPS system recalibrating or recalculating. Maybe it was the result of a missed turn or wrong turn. Or maybe it was because of construction, or even something as simple as changing our minds, doing something different, or going somewhere else first. At that point, a voice is heard, and a notification would pop up on the screen saying, recalculating. That really is the essence of today's message. Summer, life, a lack of schedule and routine can cause us to get off track. Some of us have probably even made some wrong turns, and I want you to hear this. That's okay. It's okay because we're going to acknowledge it and do something about it. We're going to recalculate and recalibrate our lives. Another way to say this would be this, is we're going to carefully assess, recalculate, and adjust, recalibrate the most important areas of our lives. We just passed the 54th anniversary of the moon landing. And of course, there's lots of talk about doing it again. I'm not sure why or what the benefit is, but nevertheless, if you were headed to the moon and got off course by just 1 degree, it would make a significant difference. In fact, if you were 1 degree off in that journey, you would miss landing on the moon by 4,169 miles. The lesson there is pretty straightforward. Being a little off track, a little off course, can actually be very devastating. From causing us to miss our goals, dreams, and desires, to negatively impacting, hurting, and damaging the things that really matter. So the solution is identify anywhere where we're off track, anywhere in our life where we're off course or falling short, to identify areas where we're missing the mark or not headed in the right direction or not achieving what we want to achieve. And from there, making the necessary changes, recalibrating and realigning to get us headed in the right direction so that we get the results that we want. This is actually good life instruction that goes all the way back to the early Old Testament. Lamentations chapter 3 verse 40 says this, "Let's take a good look at the way that we're living and reorder our lives under God." That's what I want to do today. I want to put some actionable steps to that passage of Scripture. Step 1 for all of us, I believe, would be this: evaluate. Evaluate to see if there is any area or even areas in our lives that need some attention. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 5 says, "Test yourselves to make sure that you're solid in the faith. Don't drift along taking everything for granted." But then it continues and says this, "Give yourselves regular checkups." That's powerful. Give yourselves regular checkups. Let's do that. Let's take a look at our lives. Let's take a look inward and evaluate. And let's make sure of this. Let's make sure that we always start with the most important. That would be evaluating our spiritual life and our walk with Jesus Christ. That is what matters most. It matters most because it is the foundation, it is the bedrock that everything else is built on. The truth is this: if we want this next season to be great, it's got to be great spiritually. So let's evaluate it. Let's ask ourselves this question: how is our walk with Christ? Is it strong? Are we coming out of summer healthy, growing, maturing, developing, deepening in that relationship? Or would we say this, that our relationship is struggling, that it's dry, that it's distant, that it's stagnant, that it's not what it once was? The truth is this, is we can only do something about it when we evaluate it and acknowledge it. This summer, we saw a powerful example of evaluating, or in this case, not evaluating, in the tragic Titanic submarine situation. Reports have been said that evaluations of the submarine were skipped or missed and had not been done. And as a result, minor cracks were probably missed in that vessel that later caused the implosion. I'll tell you, that is a significant physical picture of what can happen in our lives and in our relationships without regular checkups, without regular evaluations and assessments. You may, however, evaluate your spiritual life and assess, hey, this area of my life is strong. This area of my life is healthy. And I would tell you that's awesome. And if that's the case, man, let's move on and let's look at some other areas of our lives. Let's evaluate our relationships, starting with our marriages. How is your marriage? Are you dating? Are you spending time together? Are you growing closer as a couple? Those are great questions. I recently heard a story of a couple walking through a divorce, and this statement was made, that they had been growing apart for some time. Man, that's exactly what we're talking about today. They were growing apart, and their marriage was ending in divorce because there was no evaluation and no adjustments along the way. There was no recalibrating to make it better, to turn things around. In addition to our marriages, we can look at our families. How are you doing in your family's relationships? Are you giving your family what is needed? Are you leading well and leading strong? Are you nurturing and growing those relationships? Let me give us one more area to consider, one more area to evaluate. Is there an area or even area in our lives where we've allowed some compromise to sneak in? Is there an area where maybe we've gotten comfortable with a little sin? Like from the things that we watch, which is so easy to do in today's culture, to the places that we go, to the things that we do, the things that we say, to the people that we hang out with, to the casual flirting we allow, even to the small lies that we tell. The truth is that list could go on and on, but here's the takeaway. In a past series I made this statement. No one, absolutely no one plans to blow up their life, but most people don't plan not to either. That's what we're doing today. We're planning not to. So we evaluate. Step 2 would be this: identify. After we evaluate, let's identify the most vital, critical, and important area, because that's where we're going to start. We can't start in a lot of different directions and be effective. So we're going to start in one direction and focus our attention there. Proverbs 17 verse 24 says this: an intelligent person aims at wise action, but a fool starts off in many directions. So we're not going to identify a lot of things. We're going to identify the most important thing. And I'll tell you, here's how I would rank importance and vital in my own life. First and foremost, my relationship with God would be above everything else. Then I would look at my personal character and sin issues, areas of compromise, areas where I've let sin sneak in. From there, I would look at my marriage, and then my family, From there, I would go to my habits and disciplines. And finally, I would end that list by looking at my physical health. This leads us then to the third step: create. We've got to evaluate, identify, and now create a doable plan of action. That last verse that we looked at told us that we can't start off in a lot of different directions, but we do have to implement wise action. So after we identify the most vital and important area in our life that needs attention, we need to create an action plan, a plan of attack that would begin to move that area in the right direction. If it's in our spiritual life, man, we have to have a doable action plan. This is actually an area I focused on in my life this summer. I've had a lot of great things in place in my life, but I wanted to see my prayer life increase this summer and go to a new place or even back to a place that it's been at other times in my life. Now, at the end of the summer, I have a doable plan that I love and that I can do on a regular basis. For many of us, when it comes to our spiritual life, a key component is actually getting around the right people who will encourage us and spur us on in our relationship with Christ. The truth is, that's why we do small groups at Cross Mountain. Small groups really are less about the study, though the study or event is always good, but really it's more about the people. People challenging us, people encouraging us, people helping us, people strengthening us. In fact, I am super excited about the fall small group semester where we're going to encourage our entire church to go through the rooted study. In fact, I want to encourage you, plan on participating now. I promise you this, it's going to grow you and it will develop you spiritually no matter how long you've been a Christ follower. But in addition to that, and most importantly, it is going to give you a circle you need. Alone and isolation opens the door to depression. It opens the door to vulnerability. But more than anything else, alone and isolation opens the door to drifting, to wandering, or even worse, self-implosions. And remember, we're planning to not blow up our lives. Maybe you've identified another area. I've got a great question for you to ask yourselves. What can you start doing to move that area to a better place? What can you start doing in your marriage? What can you start doing in your family and other relationships? What can you start doing to strengthen yourself? Or what can you start doing to avoid that area of compromise? You've heard me quote Proverbs 21 verse 5 before. It simply says this: good planning and hard work lead to prosperity. They lead to a thriving condition. Cross Mountain, that's what I want for all of us. And I'm confident of this, that this is a great and easy way to get us there. As I've gone through this message, you may be thinking and feeling like things are really good in your life right now. You may feel like you're in a really good, healthy, strong place. And I would just say this, that is incredible. And if you find yourself in that situation, I want to encourage you in the area of prevention. Here's the question you could ask is, what can I do that is preventative? What has made a significant difference in my life that I need to keep doing? In leadership teaching, it is said that the only thing worse than not having momentum is having momentum and not knowing why. Because if you don't know why, you're not going to be able to keep doing that thing that gave you the momentum. Why? Because you don't know what it is. This applies to our personal lives as well. When we know what has given us momentum in our lives, then we know what we need to keep doing. And from there, we're going to go from strong to stronger, from healthy to healthier, always staying in a growing posture. Cross Mountain, I couldn't be more excited about this season and the next. I really feel like I'm coming out of summer with some wind in my sails that was truly desperately needed. And I feel the same way for the church at large. In fact, I'll end with this passage of scripture. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 17 says, "Whoever practices discipline is on the way to life." When I was preparing this message, I thought of this scene in the movie Forrest Gump.
Hey, dummy! Are you retarded or just plain stupid?
Look, I'm Forrest Gump. Just run away, Forrest. Run, Forrest! Run away! Hurry! Get the brakes!
Hurry up, let's get it! Come on! Look out, dummy, here we come! Get you!
Run, Forrest, run! Run, Forrest!
We're back here, you!
Run, Forrest,
Now, you wouldn't believe it if I told you.
But I can run like the wind blows. From that day on, if I was going somewhere, I was running.
In that scene, obviously, Forrest is running away from the boys chasing him on their bikes. But the point that I want to make is that Forrest had leg braces on at that time, and his running was seriously hindered as a result. But as he continued to run, the braces came off, and his running was no longer hindered. But not only did he run faster and unhindered, it actually changed his life. I would say this, it changed the course of his life. That's the significance of what we're talking about today. This topic, what we've talked about, what we've looked at, these simple steps, they have the power to unhinder and change the course of our lives. So let's implement and practice these simple steps. Evaluate, identify, and create so that we can move forward and keep moving forward to God's very best.